career, I would ask myself tons of what ifs. What if I don't like what I'm doing? What if I won't find employment when I graduate? What if this isn't what God wants me to do? What if I disappoint my parents? What if? Thankfully, there was a good side to asking what ifs. I found myself going back to some old cartoons I watched as a kid and asked myself, what if I attempted something like that? While a pilot episode of a new cartoon sounds like a major project, the one thing that cartoons need are characters that we can like or relate to. As an artist and a writer, I believe that every character created has a story to tell. For the longest time, I had always feared that creating characters in an educational setting was something that wasn't allowed. It wasn't until I researched the works of William H. Johnson, Kerry James Marshall, and Kara Walker that I understood the idea of using silhouettes, shapes, and color to create characters. When I researched William's artwork, I grew to appreciate his use of color along with his line quality. From a glance, you can tell the shaping style he uses can be easily distinguished as a person. Along with how he colors his images, at a glance, we can properly view this painting as, what one would say, is a sort of painting taken from real life. Kara's work, I learned, was all outlined and cut to look like a human figure. Even though there is no color to her artwork, we can easily outline the image as a human being. Even if some small features are hard to properly visualize, we know for certain that this is a figure of a human. Kerry James Marshall's artwork was something that I was hoping to achieve in my later time. Unlike William and Kara, Marshall's work shows no heavy lines, easy to see faces, and small details within the picture. The more you know about art history, the more you realize the phrase, anything can become art, has a critical edge. What does the amorphous term critical edge mean? It means that you take nothing for granted. For example, during my junior year, I researched the topics of emotions. In my research, I decided to visualize these emotions with body language, facial expression, and color. For joy, I picked a happy pose, a silhouette of a character with hands in the air, with a happy expression in bright yellow. For sadness, I created a pose that was slouched in the ground with a frown and sad eyes and paired it with dark blue. For anger, I used a violent type pose, an angry expression, and paired it with the color red. For fear, I used an expression on a figure scared by something, their face being covered, and paired it with the color purple. During the same year, I researched the phobias of my fellow students. With the majority of fears being the fear of death, also known as thanatophobia, there is also a fear of finding or not finding employment, drowning, being homeless, and most of all, falling in love or being married. Once again, I used body language, but this time I refrained from using facial expression. I saw Fabrice Monteiro's photography at the Chadsey Museum of Art at the University of Madison in Wisconsin. The overall theme being the ways we are both damaging and saving the earth. His photos that were being displayed were all based around the pollution caused by the people in Senegal. His use of models personifying the children of the earth goddess Gaia covered in trash inspired me to think about what, from a Christian perspective, is damaging to the world. The 7 deadly sins, originally known as the cardinal sins, came to mind. The sins being pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. When I designed the sin envy, I decided to base this design on what is called a naga, a half-human, half-snake form, because, to me, envy represents the snake that deceived Eve. Eve envied what the snake appeared to know that she did not. When I designed the sin pride, I based it on the demon Lucifer. The reason for this is because, in demonology terms, Lucifer, being the ruler of hell, takes pride in his reign. I grew up enjoying the cartoons of the 90s. My first exposure to the entertainment medium was through cartoons. My love of cartoons has not been diminished, as it greatly influences me today. Joe Murray's Rocko's Modern Life was an early favorite of mine. This surreal human show, filled with anthropomorphic animals, not only gave me inspiration to transform my characters, but it opened my eyes to understanding this medium more. However, this isn't the only show that I look back on. Craig Bartlett's Hey Arnold is also another source of inspiration. This diversely cast not only gives us interesting background knowledge about its characters, but it's one that many will say is a classic. The idea of turning my characters into trading cards came up when my brother was planning to get rid of some Pokemon cards he had. The trading card concept, I felt, would be a nice change from my usual letter size and poster size artwork. Given my fair amount of graphic design study, I wanted to put it to use with the trading card concept. From there, we see the melding of my love of cartoons and my love of trading cards. The Seven Deadly Sins trading card concept is a collaboration between my appreciation of cartoons and trading cards. My hope is that the characters I created will spark thoughtful conversation about our actions and values. I hope it will help us reevaluate to one another.